Habari Gani, which means, what's the news? Well, today, the news of the day, it's time to celebrate Kwanzaa, a celebration of our African heritage and culture. Additionally, the center is celebrating Kumbuka, the Year of Remembrance. I am Darlene Holmes, the Administrative Assistant for the Center for African and African American Studies here at Suno, and today I will serve as your Mistress of Ceremonies. But before we begin, I would like to give you a brief synopsis of today's program. First, I would like to acknowledge Dean Harrell, Dean of Arts and Sciences, and all of the Suno professors and students who are here with us this morning. Last but not least, the new chief of the village, director and visionary for the Center for African American Studies, Dr. Clyde Robinson. Dr. Robinson will also bring us words of welcome, an invocation by Dr. John Penny. Then Dr. George Amity will bring libation, which is a recognition and homage of our great ancestors, people who have made it possible for us to be here today. Following libation, we will hear from Landry Walker Senior High Choir under the direction of Mr. Joseph Knox. After the choir sings, we'll move into the occasion of this great celebration, the principles of Kwanzaa and the illumination of the harvest with Ms. Hannah Turner, a sophomore education major from Shreveport, Louisiana, here at Suno. We are here again from the Landry Choir, followed by the introduction of our keynote speaker, Dr. Daniel Black, by Ms. Helena Francis, a junior criminal justice major with a psychology minor here at Suno. Dr. Black is a Dunbarian scholar, and he will grace us with his presence and his intellect, remembering the creativity and the genius of Paul Laurence Dunbar. The Landry Choir will treat us again, followed by closing remarks by Dr. Robinson. Then we will conclude our celebration with Karuma, a feast of the harvest. Without further ado, let's celebrate. I introduce to some and present to others. Let Dr. Harrell come up and give us our opening remarks. And please follow the program as it is printed before you. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am indeed privileged to have this opportunity to welcome all of you to Southern University at New Orleans. As stated previously, I have the leadership of the College of Arts and Sciences. Of course, the significance of that is the Center for African and African American Studies is located within our college. On behalf of our Chancellor, I welcome you. If she were here, she would say this is a communiversity. So, of course, we have here, as I walk the room, I can feel the synergy. The choir from Landry, I see here students from St. Mary's and from Berman, and as stated before, our faculty and students are here. And I just want to give respect to why that is happening today. And that's because of you, Dr. Robinson. It has been a privilege to see you come. And he's only been here officially since January. But when he knew he was coming last year, he put into place this day, among other events that you will see chronicled in days to come and days that have passed. And so he has made real for us that Suno is a communiversity. he's brought together the community, culture, and family, which is so important to our chancellor and to us at Southern University at New Orleans. I've looked forward to the speaker who is coming, and I'm sure you will be blessed by his presence, by his message to you. I'm sure it will be inspiring, informational. And I'll just say to you, when I saw the reference to Dunbar, our cultural heritage here has been one where we can pull together our museum studies and our classroom. We had a literature class, and now today, all three venues highlighted this fact. We wear the mask. And so when things come in three, I'm always impressed by it. So I just hope that this will be a celebration. I do apologize for the inconvenience, but it speaks to our growth. But look around as you leave, because in about another year, we'll have a 900-seat auditorium. Wow. And so we need more to come. And again, I won't delay because we have been delayed, but I thank you for coming. Please enjoy, and don't forget the food is what we enjoy too, so stay around for that as well. Again, thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Suno, our communiversity. I am, as was stated, Dr. Clyde Robertson. I am the director for the Center for African and African American Studies, and I especially want to welcome all of our guests from all over the city, in particular the young people representing Landry Walker, St. Mary's Academy, Martin Berman, and all of our invited guests. I'd like to also acknowledge and welcome our students from Suno. I'd like to also thank the director of the library, Ms. Shatikwa Mosley Wilson, who has opened up her doors so that we could celebrate Kwanzaa here. And of course you know that Kwanzaa begins on the 26th of December and concludes on the 1st of January. But our goal here at Suno is to launch the Kwanzaa season, be the first people in the city to recognize Kwanzaa and to launch Kwanzaa for the year 1718. And so we are the first in the city to do so. As Sister Darlene identified, this is the year of Kumbuka, remembrance. What are we remembering? We are remembering 300 and celebrating 300 years of the African presence in the city of New Orleans. I think I recall hearing a politician say, without us, the gumbo would not taste the same. 300 years we've been here in the city of New Orleans. And not all of those years were good years. But we have made the city of New Orleans what it is today. Culturally, intellectually, we have made New Orleans and participated in the making of New Orleans what it is today. And so at Suno, we celebrate that, we acknowledge that, and we pursue that. You might be asking yourself, what does Dunbar have to do with the city of New Orleans? But of course, my good friend, Brother Danny, will tell us this. But in short, he was married to a woman who was from New Orleans, Alice Moore Dunbar Nelson. And as Danny will undoubtedly explain to us, after his death, she was principal in making sure that his image, his work, his memory, his legacy lived on, even up to her death. She continued to push the name and the works of Paul Laurence Dunbar. So Dunbar is connected to New Orleans. He's a part of our celebrative history, although he's not a native son. And so today we stand here and we acknowledge him and the role he played in shaping literary New Orleans and the role we played through his wife in shaping him. We also have on the program, as was stated, our university dignitaries. And we are going to call to the stage one of those dignitaries, one of the world's leading criminologists. You've probably seen him on TV, young people, because whenever there's an issue dealing with criminology in the city of New Orleans, he's the one the media will go to and ask for his wisdom, guidance, and information. So I bring to the stage Brother Dr. John Penny, Chair of the Criminology Department here at Southern University at New Orleans. Brother Penny.
It's hard to follow Dr. Robertson on stage. Such a profound, wonderful leader in our community. But nonetheless, he's asked me to perform a task, and that I will attempt to do. As we bow our heads for a moment, God, our Father, our resource, our hope when despair seemed to surround us, a gift of joy when all others seemed to fail us. God, we know that you are a strong hope in the time of trouble. Our hearts leap when we think of the peace that we have in knowing that you have provided for us a culture that is beyond anything that we could ever hope or think for. God, we praise you today because you are the God of our hope, the God of our strength, the God that walked before us and said, let there be a world that all can live in joy and peace. As we come today, we recognize that we have not always been able to do the things that you want us to do, but Lord, we just ask that you would keep us in your tender love and mercy and move us straight forward ahead. Give us the gift of knowing who we are and when we are, where our needs and what your wishes and hopes are for us. God, we praise you today for those who have come out, including our brother, Clyde Robinson. We ask that you would continue to strengthen him and direct him and give him the joy and the direction that he needs in order to accomplish the goal that he set forth. God, we just ask that you would continue to cover us with the blood of Jesus Christ and keep us safe and keep us moving in the direction that you would have us to move. And we will be so ever careful to give you the glory, the honor, and the praise, because this is the day that you've made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Baragani. I guess this is the first day, so the response should be Umoja. We're still in the first day. Baragani. Very good. The meaning is unity. I count it an honor to be on this program. Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for asking me to participate. In the African tradition, however, I'll be remiss if I don't ask the request of the elder to go forward in this program. But looking at you, Dr. Penny, I don't see anybody else. Do I have permission to go forward? Thank you, thank you. So what we will do here is libations, which is a celebratory proceeding in which we honor our past and honor our present, and we recognize the contributions that have gone before, and that with the hope of that which is to come. And so what I will do, I will make a statement, and at the end of that statement, I need you to say, Ashe, which is an affirmation. So first, what I'd like to do is honor the Creator, of which all sources come. And we want to recognize and honor the creation and the Creator for everything that we have and that exists. And with that, we say, next, I want to recognize the continent of Africa, from which many of us have come. I want to recognize Africa as the mother of civilization, and I want to recognize the debt that all of the world owes to Africa. I want to recognize Africa as the birthplace of original man. I want to recognize Africa, or Kemet, for all that it has given us. And with that, we say, Ashe. Next, I want to recognize classical Africa. The classical Africa for many of the contributions to civilizations for which we owe. I'm talking about the great empires of Ghana, Songhai, and Mali. I'm talking about the great queens and kings that were advanced in civilization. I'm talking about the intellectuals like Imhotep and many others. We owe them a debt, and with that we say, Ashe. And coming to the contemporary Africa, those who were under the grips of colonialism, those who were under the grips of imperialism, those who were under the grips of racism, but nevertheless, they find the strength within themselves to struggle against those things. I'm talking about Julius Nyerere, I'm talking about Kwame Nkrumah, I'm talking about many of those who struggle for our liberation, and with that we say, Ashe. And I would like to recognize further those who were brought, that is our ancestors, who were brought here, many through a Middle Passage, through a horrible African Holocaust that was not nice. But nevertheless, through that experience, they raised up and struggled and produced and made the best of the situation and made things that were better for us. And for those we say, Ashe. And to our grandparents, our ancestors, our parents, who at times during the times in this country, things were not always right, but they struggled as well, and they stood up and they raised their head for equal rights and struggle. Yes. And they are the ones who made things better for us. Yes. And for them we say, Ashe. And for those who are here now in the present, particularly our seniors, who today have the wisdom and the knowledge that pass on to us, that we might become better than they are, and that we might be able to recognize what they've done, we say, Ashe. And to our youth, to our young people, our future generation, yes, those who we're relying on to carry the torch, we think that you are going to be better than all of that, and that you're going to be able to advance the situation far beyond what we will ever imagine. We invest our time and our effort in you, and we put that responsibility for the future on you, and for that we say, Ashe. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Amity. At this point, I'd like to acknowledge some very important people. As you can see, this is a small space and we have a lot of people in here. And the Department of Facilities Planning and Management made this possible. I see Sister Tracy back there. Is Brother Sean still here? And all of the dynamic staff that made this space possible. I'd like to acknowledge your work. Also, Sister Darlene and I are only two of a three-person department. Our third colleague, Sister Linda Hill, is on leave, on family leave. She will be coming back in January, and I'd just like to let you know that she's doing well, and our prayers and thoughts go out to her and her family until she returns in January. At this time, Brother Knox, bring your choir to the fore. We are in for a treat, because this is truly one of the top choirs in the city. The choir at Landry Walker High School. Outstanding. Landry Walker High School Choir under the direction of Brother Knox. Outstanding.
Yes.
I'd also like to implore the juniors and seniors in high school who are amongst us. We have information about Suno in the corner, so before you leave, we will make sure that you have application forms and information about applying to Suno in the future. We have in the corner the desk with all of the necessary information, and brother, you'll be circulating at the end of the program and giving the young people information.
Okay.
All right, beautiful. Now, of course, I'm not going to introduce Brother Danny. That's for a more articulate person than myself to do, Sister Helena. But I will tell you this. I've been knowing Brother Danny a mighty long time. He was at Clark College 10 years before I got there.
After.
But we were in our PhD program together at Temple.
That's right.
And what I know about Danny is that he loves music. He is the choir master at his church in Atlanta. And when we would study, we had a big group of people who would gather Brother Danny would cook buttered rice and chicken wings and would be in the kitchen singing to the top of his lungs while we were in the back room studying. Brother Danny, you appreciated that rendition, didn't you?
Beautiful.
I know you did.
Awesome.
Beautiful, Brother Knox and young brothers and sisters, outstanding. Their selected rendition is timely because we're not going to be arrogant enough to believe that everybody in the audience knows what Kwanzaa is, where it came from, who created it. But by the time you leave, you will know. Because at this point, I want to bring to the stage Sister Hannah, who is a junior education major from Shreveport, Louisiana, and she will introduce us to the history of Kwanzaa.
Dr. Penny talked about coming up after Dr. Rob, but coming up after this choir, y'all. I'm like, wow. So my name is Hannah Turner. I'm going to give you a brief history about Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a Pan-African cultural celebration that was created by Dr. Maulana Karenga in 1966. He was inspired by the ancient African tradition known as Matunda ya Kwanzaa. Basically, Matunda ya Kwanzaa celebrated the family, the community, and culture during the first harvest. The first fruit celebration, the focus was on the gathering of the family and the community, commemoration, recommitment, and culture. Thank you. That tradition directly correlates to the purpose of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa's purpose is to reaffirm and restore the rootedness in our African culture, to reinforce the bond between our families and our communities, and to introduce the Nguzo Saba and enforce it as well. Now, Kwanzaa's direct influences on the African American culture has been through the Black freedom movements of 1960s up to today. Also, the African American studies, the creation of the African American studies. Also, it encouraged all of our families to want to know more about our culture and our traditions. That's the most important. These traditions are embodied in the Nguzo Saba, which means the 7 principles. The 7 principles are as follows, as the choir said: Umoja, Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia, Kaumba, and Imani. Okay, so I have a picture of the setup here, and we also have a setup here, so hopefully everybody can kind of see it here. Each participating family in Kwanzaa has a traditional Kwanzaa table, and it has a various of items. As you probably saw, the Kekumbe Cha Umoja, this is the unity cup. It represents the unity between our family and the community. Here you have Zawadi, which are the gifts that you receive between December 26th and January the 1st. Usually the gifts are like ethnic figures, intellectual books, things that you'll hold on for basically forever and you can pass down generation to generation. Here you have your Mazao and Muhindi. This represents the first fruits that goes back to Matunda ya Kwanzaa. Also, you have the Bendera. The Bendera usually is the Kwanzaa flag, which is on the picture here. Here is our Marcus Garvey Black Liberation flag. The difference is the colors are pushed around.
Why don't you use the other microphone? Just grab it off the stand. You can take it off the stand. There you go.
Much better. Okay, so on the Kwanzaa flag, you have black for the people, red for the blood and the sacrifice of our people, and green for the land. Everything on this table stands on those 3 principles. Here you have the Makeka, which is the mat. It serves as a foundation for the Kanara, which is the candle holder. And you have the Mashuma Saba, which are our 7 candles, which represent the 7 principles. Did you?
Oh, you want to blow it up? Okay. You go ahead and put the light. So did you get that switch?
December 26th starts the first day of Kwanzaa. The principle for that day is umoja. Umoja is for unity, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, the community, nation, and race. December 27th, Kujishagalia, self-determination, to define ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. December 28th, Ujima, collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems ours to solve together. Wow, we started off strong.
Use the camera.
Oh, yeah. Good idea. See, you see? Collective work
Joining
and
together,
responsibility. There we go.
That's it.
Okay. December 29th, Ujama, cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses to profit from together. December 30th, Nia, purpose. This was emphasized during the song, I like that. To make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. December 31st, Kaumba, creativity, to do always as much as we can in the way that we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. And on the last day, January 1st, Imani, faith, to believe with all our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of the struggle. Now, can I get everybody to stand up with me? I would like for you all to participate with me in the Harambe call. Harambe means the coming together of the community. So basically what you do, you'll reach up high to the sky, everybody reach up high to the sky, and you'll grasp like you're grasping some money, some valuable to you. This is you grasping your ancestors' energy. Now I want you to bring your hand over to your heart. And this is you bringing your ancestors' energy into your bosom. Okay, so we're going to do that 7 times because we did 7 principles, right? So we're gonna, on the 7th time, you're going to hold it in real tight and then we'll let go. So it'll be like Harambe, like that, okay? Okay. Y'all ready? All right. Harambe, 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 Harambe. Last time. Harambe. Thank you.
And once again, we bring up to the front the Landry Walker Choir for one rendition before the introduction of the speaker.
Watch your robes.
Awesome work, choir.
Yeah, watch your road.
Good, brother. Beautiful.
Watch your robes. No fires today.
God forbid.
Introduction. Walker's going. That's the lead. The lead.
Sister Helena.
Yes. You ready?
Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me.
Just give me
that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me.
Just
Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me. It was good for the Hebrew children. It was good for the Hebrew children. It was good for the Hebrew children. It's good enough for me. It was good for Paul and Silas. It was good for Paul and Silas. It was good for Paul and Silas. It's good enough for me. It was good for my grandmother. It was good for my grandmother. It was good for my grandmother. It's good enough for me.
Just
Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me.
Just give me that
Old-time religion, old-time religion. Old-time religion, old-time religion. Time religion, old-time religion. It's good enough for me.
Just give me that
Time religion, old-time religion. Time religion, old-time religion. Time religion, old-time religion. It's good enough for me.
Just
Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me.
Just
Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for
good enough
good enough
Hold it out, brothers.
for me.
Landry Walker. Brother Knox, what are you doing, brother? What are you doing? That is beautiful, man. Wow. I am a bass singer myself, and I appreciate a good bass.
Wait a minute.
I sing in the bathroom and in the car. But I nonetheless. That was outstanding. Wow. The old Negro spirituals, those are classics.
That's right. That's right.
This took me back to the chapel at Tuskegee. That was a beautiful rendition, young brothers and sisters. Outstanding. Anywhere in the country and the world, outstanding. At this point, I'd like to bring to the stage, we're getting to that moment in the program where we've all been waiting, for which we've all been waiting. That's Brother Danny Omatosho Black, and he's going to be introduced to you by Sister Helena Francis, a junior education major from New Orleans. I told you, someone more articulate than myself.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Let me first let everyone know I'm a psychology major. My minor is criminal justice. Young brothers and sisters joining us today from your home schools, elders, members of the community and Suno family, Habari Gani.
Yes.
Welcome to our Kwanzaa celebration. Please let me begin by sharing my personal motto with you. We are scholars. Everywhere that we go, we learn. And for that fact, we must consciously place ourselves in positive environments where the things that we learn can be turned into the tools that will help us along our journeys. I appreciate that each of you took time to make it here today. And in the words of Mark Twain, thank you for not letting your schooling get in the way of your education. Dr. Daniel Omatosho Black was born in Kansas City, Kansas on November 28, 1965. He was raised by his great-grandmother, Stella Swinson, in a small area named Blackwell. Dr. Black credits his great-grandmother with inspiring him to write stories that work to transform and uplift humanity. As Dr. Black has said, prophecies come to one generation and materialize in another. Dr. Black attended Clark College, where he majored in English. He was awarded the Oxford Modern British Study Scholarship in 1987, which he used to study abroad at Oxford University in Oxford, England. He graduated from Clark College as magna cum laude in 1988. He was awarded a full fellowship to Temple University to pursue a PhD in African American Studies. It was while he completed his dissertation at Temple that he would come under the advisement of Robert Frost Medal recipient Sonia Sanchez. Ms. Sanchez is the African American poet most associated with the Black arts movement. She is considered the poet laureate for the movement. Dr. Black earned his master's degree in 1990 and his doctorate 2 years later, both from Temple University. Dr. Black currently lives in Atlanta, Georgia. He has been a professor of African American Studies and English at both Morehouse College and his alma mater, now Clark Atlanta University, since 1993. He returned to his alma mater, Clark Atlanta University, in order to continue the long-standing tradition of top-notch scholars who publish and remain at historically Black institutions. He is known as Omatosho Ojimani within the Ndugu and Nzinga Rites of Passage Nation. He founded the nation in 1993. It is in this capacity that he is able to promote knowledge about African traditions, culture, ceremonies, and symbols. There he strives to develop character, build healthy communities, and cultivate self-love. By practicing communal commitment, the nation has grown to embrace over 250 men and women committed to making significant contributions in the field of education, law, medicine, and arts. Dr. Black has produced a body of work that is meant to nourish the very souls of the African diaspora. His works encompass a range of themes, from exploring the cultural clash between the patriarchal Black community and the elitist academic world in They Tell Me of a Home, to reimagining the unthinkable suffering that millions of abducted Africans endure in The Coming. The Coming is a nod to Toni Morrison's suggestion that stories about the Middle Passage did not seep into the African American oral tradition. On his second novel, A Sacred Place, he breathes life into his characters, giving each of them their own personality. I became intimate with each of them. The story content is painful. The rawness of the story conjures dark emotions of pain, hurt, and fear. Though it's a work of fiction, it's a story of America's ugly history. It's a story that speaks to the horrors that we still face today. On his fifth novel, The Coming, this soul-shaking book is so powerful that leaders, clergy, and academics nationwide are praising it as a crucial Sankofa moment. A moment, an opportunity to learn from the past, the lessons that must inform the future. One of Dr. Black's most noted works is Perfect Peace, for which the GOG&H Book Club Committee named him their 2011 Author of the Year. In 2014, he earned the Distinguished Writers Award from the Mid-Atlantic Writers Association. All right, all the college students in attendance will agree that the best way to find out about a professor is by asking his old students. Unfortunately, Dr. Black's students are busy back at Clark-Atlanta and missing his presence and deeply lamenting his absence as we speak. But their voices have stretched across the 456 miles that separate CAU from Southern University at New Orleans, and if I may, they have a righteous claim on you, brother. So please allow me to be a vessel through which their voices speak. And they say, if you take any English class, try to get this guy. This class should be required for all freshman students. The material is very deep and meaningful. Class is never long enough. Dr. Black gave us the Morehouse experience. He is like walking wisdom. This man changed my life. It was his great advice that helped make me a better student. Dr. Black is a phenomenal professor. His lessons extend far beyond the curriculum. You will enjoy the discussions because they challenge you to think. He is the author of several great books, and you'll enjoy reading them all in his class. You have to work hard for every grade. He gives no freebies, and he expects no excuses. Without any further ado, Suno and invited guests, please join me in using the words of the great Zulu nation, showing Dr. Daniel Amatosho Black, Sawubona, or we see you, brother.
Yes. I need to take you on the road with me, sister. You know, the first thing that I want to say is, you know, I am the choir director and I'm a music teacher and all this. So as the choir was singing, y'all listen. There's some bad young people. But I think that we really might not have gotten the most out of this choir. And see, when you do Kwanzaa, the beauty of Kwanzaa is that it's supposed to be participatory, right? We're all supposed to be in this. So I'm gonna put them on the spot a minute. And Brother Knox, I want you to take me back to this old time religion. Y'all can sing it from right there. And I want every voice in here to join in until the very walls of this place vibrate, right? Because I want you to understand that unless and until we do this collectively, the ancestors have not been honored. I'm gonna jump in too. Just get right back there.
Give me that old time.
Come right on in when you know the song. Old time religion.
Give me that old time religion.
It's good enough
for me.
Give me that old time religion.
Give me that old time religion.
Oh, give me that old religion. It's good enough. We're almost there, but I don't hear some of the people in the back. Huh? That old time religion.
Give me
that old time religion. Oh, give me that old time religion. It's good enough. One more round. Give me that old time. Oh, give me that old time religion. It's good enough for. Good enough for me. Thank you, choir. See, when black people get together, you don't get to just spectate. When black people get together, you have to participate. Or either we ask you to leave. That's what we do when we come together. If you ever go to black church, you can't just sit there. You got to say amen, clap, stomp your feet. You got to do something. That's who we are. I'm grateful to be here. My students at Walker-Landry and at Morehouse, they're very upset today because I'm supposed to be in class right now. And they text me, where the heck are you, Dr. Black? And so I told them, you know, I'm on business, handling business in New Orleans. And I'm very happy to be here. My dear friend and brother, Dr. Clyde Robertson, as he said, we go way, way, way back. Now he lied, he's about 20 years my senior. Right? When I was in elementary school, Clyde was in college, you know. But we met up in graduate school some 30 years ago. We forged a bond, of course, that has kept us, and we've now become scholars in our respective places. And I'm extremely, extremely happy about being who I am and where I am. You know, I saw on the program that we're doing Kumbuka, which is remembering. And so what I first have to do is take you back. See, to remember, we have to go back in time before we come forward. So I'm going to share with you a piece from my latest novel called The Coming, which is the story of the Middle Passage. Because that's really the time, and that's the tie. That's the tie that binds all of us together in this place called America. So this is The Coming. And then came the disaster. With open arms, we embraced those who looked nothing like us, assuming that all life honors life. But we were wrong. In the end, we fed and strengthened our own captors. We cannot claim naivete. We cannot say we were people undeveloped. We cannot say there were no signs. We can say only that we did not heed them. Sound wisdom was as common to us as the evening breeze. We scoffed and shrugged, y'all, at elders' forewarning of a time of great tragedy and chaos. We did not believe them. We had learned to ignore our own gods, to take their goodness for granted, to believe that because of them, we were immune to external attack. So we did not hear them. We heard only what we sought to hear. But now we hear it all, echoing in our regretful memories. If only we could have seen into the future, we might have avoided the onslaught. But most of us had no such powers. The few who did, the seers and sages, we had dismissed. They were always speaking of things to come, warning of impending disasters that rarely came to pass, at least in our lifetime. Now we know that prophecies come to one generation, but materialize in another. If only we had listened, if only we had had more disciplined ears. But we did not. And so we blamed ourselves, we blamed our gods, we blamed each other. But there was no one to blame, only shame to bear. And pity, yes, great pity, that a people so strong missed so many clues. The forest whispered it, the birds chirped it, the trees waved it, the antelope danced it, the tall grass swayed it, the lions roared it, the elders said it over and over and over. Beware, my people. Seek not the thing you do not need. Greed destroys wisdom. Let just enough be enough. But we were too blessed. Our abundance suggested immortality, so we stopped searching for invisible things. Our mothers had worked so hard we didn't have to. Our fathers had killed enough game that their sons hardly knew the hunt. We didn't know then what we know now. A life of leisure destroys a child. When there's nothing to gain, nothing to work for, there's nothing also to die for. So we had to die to learn how to live again. And that's what we did, y'all. We died. By the thousands and hundreds of thousands, we died. We'd never seen such unjustifiable violence, bloody bodies laying prostrate across the earth as if pleading for forgiveness. Those who survived did not mourn. There was no time. The loss was too great. We still have not mourned because we still have no time. We remember, yes, but we have not mourned. And so death came quickly. It came unannounced. It came cloaked in our own garb. It came white as clouds, smiling as if it loved us. Death came in the darkness of night as we were laughing and talking with ancestors. Death came in legions with guns and ammunition too powerful to battle. It came like the monsoon winds. It came like a flood. It came with earth-shaking force we could not control. It came under the authority of nations we did not know. Death came with men whose wives benefited from their husbands' despicable behavior. Death came with men whose children would one day inherit their father's legacy of violence and wealth ill-gained. Death came to strip the land of its glory. It came to thousands and hundreds of thousands without sympathy for our loss. It came with impaled brutality. It came to scatter children's blood-soaked bodies about the earth, thus fertilizing dry, yearning soil. But in the end, death really came for one reason: to teach us that we were brothers. And we learned our lesson. Some were taken by surprise. Some were killed on the spot. Some were taken in their sleep. Some were ambushed in the forest. Some were tricked into believing they were going for a walk. Some were consumed with hatred. Some were inebriated. Some were too lazy to fight. Some were busy settling communal affairs. Some were nursing wounds inflicted by spouses. Some were telling children bedtime stories of talking spiders. Some were beating drums to warn the rest of us. But most of us, like now, were not listening. And so we did not hear the call. In a moment, the flash of an eye, our destruction was complete. An entire village destroyed in one solitary cycle of the sun and moon. They destroyed our homes and forced our leaving. They bound us with heavy chains of iron. Elders rendered mute and lifeless. Babies deprived of life's knowing. All we could do was wonder. We did not speak. There was nothing to say. In those moments, we heard our elders' warning and we understood. We knew they loved us now, far more than we had understood before. But they could not hear our cries, our pleas of lament, not with the ears of the living. And so one by one, by one, by one, they took us away. They took the farmers first, those who knew the land, the earth, the ingredients of the soil, those who heard its rumble, felt its movement, understood its seasons, those who knew seeds and germination, plant spacing and harvest. They took them first. Those who walked barefoot upon the soil in homage to its life-sustaining power. It was no accident. They would farm again in a new world, feeding a nation committed to their very destruction. And after the farmers, they took the healers. They were not hard to find. Most days they lingered about the village, repairing bodies and minds too troubled to heal alone. They had learned from us the value of our healers. They knew that without them we were weak, vulnerable people. If they took our healers, they must have assumed, they also took our ability to mend ourselves, and they were right. So they captured our healers that we might never rebound. Villages of frightened, wounded people without medicine, men and women, would take centuries to restore. But they knew this. Their strategy was as calculated as the hyena's attack. Without shaman, who would usher life back into our suffering souls? Who would reassure us that death had not come to stay? Who would cleanse the forest, the land of poisonous energy brought by evildoers? We did not know the answers to these questions. All we knew for sure is that we were not listening when they sounded the drums. And so we had to come. We marched quickly. We marched through forests. We marched over hills and valleys. We marched through hot desert land. We marched alongside waterfalls and brooks. We marched, we marched, we marched. We marched until we were thirsty. We marched through high grass. We marched on barren earth. We marched past monkeys dashing in the distance. We marched past giraffes whose frantically swiveling heads told us never ever to give up the fight. We marched past lions roaring in the distance. We marched past ant hills wherein frightened ants scrambled hysterically, then vanished out of sight. We marched past gardens sprouted but not tilled. We marched past neighboring villages we thought we despised. We marched past sites of rituals where we'd known spirit possession and healing. We marched past governmental huts where government officials met to solve collective dilemmas. We marched past people we didn't know. We marched past people we had never seen. We marched past people we thought we hated, who would only tomorrow or maybe the next day become the very reason we had survived. We marched and we marched and we marched and we marched until they put us on that boat. We marched. And on that boat, we discovered that we, in fact, were the same people. We had fought each other, many of us, wars between us, in fact, killing each other, in fact. And now, on this boat, we were one. And that oneness would be the only reason we survived, if we survived at all. Thank you. I wanted to start there because, you know, we're in a moment and a day and time where our collective unity is up for grabs. And we're in a moment and we're in a time where people seem not to understand the beauty and the brilliance of our black children, where they're shooting black boys as quickly as they're speaking to them, if someone understands what I'm saying. We're in a moment and a time where people don't look in the faces of these beautiful young people. They don't hear the angelic voices of these young people and say, oh my God, there goes God. Oh, that's what God looks like. Oh wow, there is the angel, I see her. See, we're in a place where people don't know who our children are. The saddest part about it is sometimes our own children don't know who they are. Right? Because see, if you really knew, young people, who you were, if you really truly knew who you were, you'd be so happy to read you didn't know what to do. If you really truly understood who you were, you would understand math is not hard. Listen, we built pyramids that won't even fall. What are you talking about? This is who we are. This is what we do. If you really truly understood the price paid for you, you would run into class and sit down and be quiet instantly, because there were people generations before you who cried for the possibility of going to a thing called a library. And now you have one free. And might go, might not. That means you don't get it. You don't get it then. Then you don't really understand who you are. Because if you really understood who you were, you would understand that every book you have is a life. A book is a living thing. Because it is knowledge. And knowledge is the only thing that if you ever get it, they can't ever take it away from you. And there's a gentleman named Laurence Dunbar who understood that. He understood the power of knowledge. He understood the beauty of knowledge. He understood the sacred nature of what it meant to read and to write words. He was born in 1872 in a little place called Dayton, Ohio. And Laurence Dunbar was born to parents who had been slaves. And they were really quite taken with this little kid. Very, very small, very dark-skinned little boy. And he could read by age 2. And they would say, who is this kid? Who is this kid? His mother, she was absolutely mesmerized that she had this child who seemed so erudite, so young. But he loved nothing more than words. He would write words even on the walls of their home, and then his mother would wash the words away. Then the next day, he'd write new words all over again, because he just loved words, but he had no paper, so he wrote on the walls. Just because he loved language, he loved the beauty of literature. He started writing poetry when he was 6 and 7 years old, and began to read these in churches, and people were amazed. This little bitty little short dude, right, reading this poetry, and they would say, whose poetry is this? And he'd say, mine! Laurence Dunbar. Right? An exceptional kid. A kid who loved music, who would sometimes just walk around the house, biographers suggest, who would just walk around the house humming. And 7 years old. Most of us don't do that at 17. Some of us don't do it at 37. Who was this brilliant dude? Who was he? And, you know, he went to school. Laurence Dunbar was so brilliant that in the late 1800s, not 1960s, in the late 1800s, he was so smart in Dayton, Ohio, that white schools allowed Dunbar to attend their schools. Nobody else. The only white kid in the entire school. And once he graduated, there wouldn't be another for the next 60 years. He was just that brilliant. He was more brilliant than anybody, black or white, that anyone knew. He graduated from an all-white high school in 1890. Just that unbelievable. And he wrote some very, very, very famous poems. One of those poems says, "We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts we smile. and mouthed with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, he says, only let them see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. Another poem whose title you might remember, I might know it by heart, I think. Most of these I do. You'll know a line, and you thought that Maya Angelou wrote this, but you'll see that she did not. He wrote a poem, he says, I know what the caged bird feels. Alas, you've heard that book, right? I know why the caged bird sings. Maya Angelou took the title from Paul Laurence Dunbar. When the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind stirs soft through the springing grass, and the river flows like a stream of glass. When the first bird sings, and the first bud opes, and the faint perfume from its chalice steals, I know what the caged bird feels. I know why the caged bird beats its wings till his blood is red on the cruel bars, for he must fly back to his perch and cling when he fain would be on the boa's swing. And the pain still throbs in the old, old scars, and they pulse again with a keener sting. I know why he beats his wings. I know why the caged bird sings, ah, me, when his wing is bruised and his bosom sore, when he beats his bars and he would be free. It is not a carol of joy or glee, but a prayer that he sends from his heart's deep core, but a plea that upward to heaven he flings. I know why the caged bird sings. Now, thank you. I'll take a few, okay? Yes. Now, Dunbar got into trouble by doing a very dangerous thing. And that is, Dunbar said, you know, I do want to write. Yes, I want to write poetry, yes. But I don't want to write all my poetry in standard English. I don't want to write all of my poetry in the language of the captors. I don't want to write all of my poetry in the tongue of white folks. I want to write some poetry that sounds like my people said it. I want to write some poetry that my grandmother would recognize. I want to write some poetry that sings off the page. I want to write some poetry that includes the idiomatic expressions, right, that black people usually speak with. And this was because he heard his mother talking and telling stories of the old South. And he said, you know what, Mama, I want to write some poetry in the way you talk. And she said, well, son, no, that's not the way you write. You know, there's a standard way we write. And he said, yeah, I get that, I understand. But isn't it possible to write poetry the way you talk too? And Dunbar introduces this thing. It really makes it famous. He wasn't the first to do it. But he makes famous this thing called dialect poetry, in which he celebrates what it means to be black in our own tongue and in our own idiomatic expressions. Probably his most famous dialect poem is a poem called When Melindy Sings. And this poem is talking about the beauty of a black woman named Melindy and her unbelievable ability to sing. Well, the spokesperson in this story is working for a white woman, and this white woman is practicing, right, for the local opera. And she's practicing in the house and she's singing, and this butler, if you will, right, is hearing her sing. And he's like, no, that's not it. Sister, you don't have it. I'm telling you, you ain't got it. But I know somebody, right, who can kill this song if you just let her. And so he writes a poem called When Melindy Sings, and it goes like this. Go on, quit that noise, Miss Lucy. Put that music book away. There ain't no reason you trying to sing if you practice plumb till your grave. You can't stay on the notes of flying like the ones that rats and range from the kitchens to the big woods when Melinda sings. You ain't got the natural organs for to make the sound come out right. You ain't got the right tones and the twistings for to make it sweet and light. But I tell you one thing now, Miss Lucy, and I'm going to tell you for true. When it comes to real rat down singing, it ain't no easy thing to do. Easy enough for folks to holler, look at the lines and dots. But can't nobody sense it, and the whole tune just comes in spots. But for real melodious music that just strikes your heart and clangs, you better come over here and listen with me when a black woman sings. Ain't you never heard Melinda? Bless your soul, take up the cross. You mean tell me you ain't never heard a black woman sing? Child, you don't know what you done lost. Robin lights and all them things hush their mouths and close their faces when Melinda sings. Fiddling man stop his fiddle, lay his fiddle on the shelf. Mockingbirds quit trying to sing because they just so shame theyself. Folks playing on the banjo, draps their fingers around them strings, bless your soul, they forgets to move them when a black woman sings. She spreads her mouth and hollers, "Come to Jesus." Ooh, tell you, hey, sinners come as the trembling and folk go to drawing near. Then she turns to Rock of Ages, oh, clap for me. Listen, baby, you fin your tears to come as the dropping when that black woman go to sing. Who that says humble praises to the master never counts? You better close your mouth. I heard that music as it rises up and mounts, floats back in the hills and valleys, way back in that barren sod as it makes its way to the glory and the very gates of God. Ooh, baby, sweeter than the music of an educated band. And dearer than the battle of songs of triumph in the land. Seems holier than evening when the solemn church bells ring as I sit and calmly listen to that black woman sing. Tulsa, stop that barking. Mandy, can't you make that child get somewhere and be still? Don't you hear her singing even now from the valleys clean back to them hills? Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Oh, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Now, Miss Lucy, that is what you call some singing. Thank you. There's another Dunbar dialect poem. Do y'all like the dialect poetry? There's another dialect poem that he did that was very, very famous, that he did particularly for children. And it was called In the Morning. Now, some of you children are a little young for this, but Dunbar wrote this poem kind of making fun of a child who decides that they were going to sleep late on a Saturday morning, right? See, if you're from the country, children got up when everybody else got up, and there were things to do called chores, right? We used to have what's called work to do, right? Somebody sleep at 9 or 10 o'clock, my father would be furious. Now, 11 and 12 o'clock was completely unheard of. Right? So, you know, I tell people, and this is really true, the first time I slept past 7 a.m., I was in college. I had come to college. Right? When my father would hit the floor at 5:30 in the morning, and he would walk the whole house and say, "Rise and shine." He would scream it until you got up. Right? And then, if you weren't at the table in 10 minutes, you're going to get a whooping. Right? Now, people say, "Oh, no, I can't do that." No problem. Daddy's solution, he had a very easy one. Pack your stuff. Then you can't stay here. So we got up. Is what happened. So this poem is about a child who decides that they're going to sleep later, right, than mama might allow. It's called In the Morning. The child's name is Elias. Live! 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 Bless the Lord. Don't you know the days are broad? If you don't get out that bed, you scamp, it's finna be trouble in this here camp. You think I was gonna let you sleep while I make sure boat and keep? they do. Don't you hear me, boy, you? Bet if I come across this floor, you won't find no more time to snow. Daylight all shining in, you sleeping in the bed. Don't you know that's a sin? Ain't the candlelight enough to burn you out without a snuff? You going all the morning through, burning up daylight too? Lies! Don't you hear me when I call? Don't you turn towards that wall. I hear that mattress squeak. Don't you hear me when I speak? This here clock done struck off 6. Somebody bring me my stick. Oh, you down, son. You really down. Look here, and I dare you to frown. Now mox yourself up and wash your face. Don't you splatter all over the place. Got something else to do besides cleaning up after you. Take a comb and comb that head. Walking around here looking like a feather bed. Now you look here, boy, I done let you see. I know you wasn't rolling them black eyes at me. Just come here, you dare. Bring somebody better bring me my strap, child, I'll whip you till you drop. You done felt yourself too strong, and you sure done got this mama wrong. Sit down at that table there. Just you whip if you dare. Every morning around this place, good God, you children tries to make me lose my grace. Fold your hands and bow your head. You wait until the blessing said. Lord, have mercy on our souls. Get your hands off them rolls. Bless this food we won't eat. I said sit still. I see them feet. Try that trick again. Lord, you better give this boy some peace. Amen. The beauty of Dunbar, I think, was that Dunbar did a very dangerous thing. And Dunbar said, listen, if you're going to write your own tone. Write your own tongue. Write your own language. Make sure you put your own voice into the literary tradition. That was really Dunbar's claim to fame. Now, what's brilliant about Dunbar is that Dunbar is dead by age 32. Dunbar dies very, very young, tuberculosis. But by age 32, by hand, Dunbar had written 5 novels, 6 collections of short stories, 7 collections of poetry, all by hand. And most of it he did before he was 30, because by the time he turned 30, 31, Dunbar was sick. He married a woman named Alice Moore Dunbar Nelson, as Dr. Robinson spoke earlier, who was from this place called New Orleans. He and she had a very difficult time in their marriage. She was a very, very light-skinned young lady, very pretty sister. And Dunbar was extraordinarily dark, very, very, very dark. Dunbar had color issues. He had color issues about his beauty as a dark man. They fell out, all kinds of good gossip, which I won't go into right now. But I will say that Dunbar visited New Orleans several times as he was courting Alice. Now, people don't court anymore. But back then, if you liked somebody, what do folks call it now? Is it, you going with somebody? You're talking. You do what? Joseph? Oh, wow. Let me catch up then. Wow. You know, when I was in school, we wrote notes. You like me, yes or no? I guess no, since nobody reads, you can't write no notes to nobody no more. Joseph. Am I saying it right? Yeah. Joseph. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to be hip now. I'm going to use that. I shouldn't use it? Oh, that's not good? Okay. Now, I'm bringing this up because Dunbar travels to New Orleans more times than Dunbar can count, trying to court this very light-skinned, this very beautiful sister named Alice Dunbar Nelson, who quite frankly is a poet in her own right, and wrote some very good poetry. I'll tell you a funny story as I begin to end. I've always loved Dunbar because I love Dunbar's dialect poetry. Well, when I was maybe 22 years old and I went to graduate school in a place called Philadelphia, I heard that Paul Laurence Dunbar and Alice Dunbar, that their niece was still living. And she lived right outside of Philadelphia. She was 92, 93 at the time. And I heard this from a man named Charles Blockson. right, who headed an African American collection at Temple. Well, anyway, I said, she's alive? He said, she is living, and she has a house full of memorabilia. Nobody studies Dunbar anymore. Nobody cares anything about Dunbar. I said, like, she's living here? He said, maybe an hour outside of Philadelphia. I got in my little car, and I drove to her house, and knocked on the door, right? Very thin, little small woman comes to the door, and I said, ma'am, my name is da-da-da-da-da, you know, I'm here because I'm very interested in Dunbar. And she said, oh, Lord have mercy. She said, ain't nobody asked me about him in 20 years. I said, oh my God, are you serious? I said, would you mind if I came in? I walked in, and she had all of this stuff all over the wall. Letters from Paulus Dunbar to her Aunt Alice, her mother's sister. Original books of his, of poetry. I said, ma'am, what in God's name are you going to do with all of this? She said, I don't know. I don't have any children. When I die, I guess the house will just burn down. I said, oh, ma'am, you don't mean that. Not all of this stuff. So I went 2 or 3 times, and I said, ma'am, I want to propose something. Would you be willing to turn this collection over to me, and I turn this collection over to Clark-Atlanta University, where students can study Dunbar from now into eternity? And she said, do you think they want it? I said, ma'am, listen to me. I want it. All right? I want it. And she literally said, well, you know what? If you think they'll use it, right, let me think about it. I left there, and I came back again. And when I came back again, she had papers drawn up. She said, you can have everything you want in this house of Dunbars. Nobody else has asked me about it. I had chills all over me. And she said, and I want to give you a little gift. And she gave me a copy of a book called Oak and Ivy, which was Dunbar's first collection of poems. And it was an original, right? And I have this at my house under lock and key. I took that collection, I called the president of Clark-Atlanta University. He flew me and her down to Clark-Atlanta, hired movers to go in her house and pack up all this stuff. And so I stick my chest out with pride to say Clark-Atlanta University owns the Paul Laurence Dunbar. I'm very, very happy about that, because we can't let that kind of heritage just be thrown away. You know, and I kept saying, nobody has asked you about this. And she said, I've been sitting here, right here, for the last 40 years. I said, oh my God, how is this possible? And what it made me think of is, what other treasures have we let just die by the wayside? Who in the world knows where the different collections of papers are? Some of this stuff is in trunks under people's bed. And you all, as scholars and as thinkers, we have to resurrect this. And as future scholars, you all have to know these people, because you all have to study these people. I'm hoping someday one of y'all is going to study me. I've done all this writing. Surely it's going to mean something to somebody. Right? That's my prayer. The last poem I want to do for you is a favorite of mine. Most people have never even heard of this poem, but it was also a favorite of Dunbar's. And it's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful poem. But it's about Dunbar said, really, what we'll realize one day is just being black was already heaven. I love that phrase. Being black was already heaven. And so he wrote this poem called The Place Where the Rainbow Ends. There's a fabulous story full of splendor and glory that Arabian legends transcend, of the wealth without measure, the coffers of treasure, at the place where the rainbow ends. Oh, many have sought it, and all would have bought it with the blood we so recklessly spend. But none has uncovered the gold, nor discovered the place at the rainbow's end. They have sought it in battle, and even where the rattle of dice with man's blasphemy blends. But however persuasive, it still proves evasive, this place where the rainbow ends. I own for my pleasure, I yearn not for treasure, though gold has a power it lends. And I have a notion to find without motion the place where the rainbow ends. The pot may hold pottage, the place be a cottage that a humble contentment defends. Only joy fills its coffer, but spite of the scoffer, your home is the place where the rainbow ends. Where care shall be quiet and love shall run riot, and I shall find wealth in my friends. Then truce to the story of riches and glory. There is the place where the rainbow ends. So young people, I've come to New Orleans really to tell you one thing, and that is, all you really have to do, I'm not so much concerned with your circumstances. I'm not so much concerned with how troubled your life is. I'm not so much concerned if your mother's home or if your father's not home. I'm not so much concerned with that. I know that might sound harsh, but the reason I'm not so much concerned with that is because I had it too. All right, I'm not so much concerned with that. I'm not so much concerned with, oh my God, my mother was on crack. I'm not so much concerned with that. I'm not so much concerned with, oh, I really only have one pair of shoes. I'm not so much concerned with that. Black people built institutions without shoes at all. So I'm not so much concerned with that. But I'm concerned with one thing. When you look in the mirror, if you don't smile back at what you see, now that's what I'm concerned about. If you don't yet understand that every shade of black is another dimension of God, then that's what I'm concerned with. See, you can be black, you can be brown, you can be caramel, you can be latte, right? You can be jet black, you can be purple black, you can be light cream, and I want you to be very clear that God looks like all of it. Every single piece of it. Listen, there's nothing that can stop you from being excellent if you just decide to be excellent. Don't you know that in 1 minute, you'll get the opportunity to do anything you choose, but any excuse you can bring up will be enough to stop you. And so what I'm really saying to you young people here is, I grew up without a mother. My mother abandoned me when I was about 6 months old, raised by my father, tough life. My father beat me like crazy. All of that is true. All of that is true. And I still got a PhD at 26. So listen to what I'm telling you. Listen, you cannot stop God when you get clear about who you are. Get clear. Get clear. Obstacles is not the reason that you don't achieve. Tough times is not the explanation for why you didn't do that homework. No, you can use it as an excuse, but it's not the real reason. The real reason is because you just didn't want to do it. Listen, our people read by candlelight, sometimes by moonlight. And all you got to do is go to the wall and turn the switch on, cut it out. Cut it out. Now is your turn to bloom. I'm going to look for your names on books in the future. I'm looking for you on the television. I'm looking for some of you to finally find the cure for cancer. For some of you to finally find the cure for sickle cell anemia. That's your job. And I pray that you do it and that you do it well. Happy Kwanzaa to all of you.
Brother Danny Black, on the torso. Brother, on the torso Black. Powerful presentation, Brother Black, Brother Danny. To draw your attention to your program. Many of Dr. Black's books are mentioned in your program. Sister Vera Warren, is Sister V here or is she out in the hall? Sister Vera is in the back with Dr. Black's books. For those of you who are interested in purchasing some of the books, Brother Danny is here for you. A copy of his book as well. Mama Vera from the Community Book Center. Let us join me, all of you, join me in recognizing Brother Danny Black. Kwanzaa actually begins December 26th and January 1st. We are getting an early start on the Kwanzaa season. We are the first in the city to embrace and launch Kwanzaa today.
Yes, sir.
Of course, I'm not saying no one else does. We are the first to do it this year. This is the first Kwanzaa celebration of the year. in the city of New Orleans. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. I'd like to draw your attention to the young man in the middle behind the camera. That's Mike, we call him Money Mike. That's Dr. Mike Maynard. I'd also like to acknowledge the cafeteria staff, and they've prepared a dynamic karamu. Now, I'd like to make this request. I'd like to have the young people served first because they have to return back to their schools.
Right.
St. Mary's, Berman, and of course not to ignore at all the dynamic Landry Walker. Brother Knox, do you all have one more for us? Yes. You got one more for us? Yes. How many of you want to hear Landry Walker again? Brother Knox.
I think it's 12:50. 1:30.
You really big deal, man. I know you guys. I'm going to read late at that was so called 30, 45 minutes right
Y'all are so
there. Sitting right there.
Mr. Knox and the Landry Walker Choir. Come on, give it up. Outstanding, brother. I put it in.
Dr. Ryan.
What a friend we have in Jesus.
Unbelievable, Brother Knox.
That's
Please.
Just for information and purpose, if you want to hear this great choir again, we are actually getting ready for our winter concert, which will take place December the 20th. It's a Wednesday evening, 7 p.m., free to the public. You can invite as many that you would like to be in attendance for that occasion. We're working hard towards that, and we would love for you to be in attendance. And also, we're actually getting ready to perform with the Louisiana Philharmonic, December the 9th and the 10th. We're actually, it's a winter concert with the 610 Stumpers. So we're going to be singing along with the Louisiana Philharmonic, and this will be our first time actually performing with an orchestra. So they're looking forward to that, and they're excited about that. So you can find us around the city, but please, you'll be our special guest December the 20th. Put it on your calendar. It's going to be at Landry Walker in the auditorium, right across the river. The only thing that interrupts this side of New Orleans from that side is a river. And if you cross it, it won't be that long. But we're all connected. So please be our special guest December the 20th, 7 p.m. in the Landry Walker Auditorium. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Clyde.
Thank you, Brother Knox. And I'd like to thank again Brother Danny Black, facilities management, the cafeteria, sisters and brothers from Landry. We are going to give you some special information about Suno. We want you to consider us. Sister Darlene and Brother Amity are part of our faculty and staff choir here. So they'd like to see some of you here in our choir. All right, without any further ado, again, thank you very much. Thank you for coming out, and happy Kwanzaa. Oh, there are some evaluations. Have they been disseminated?
I can't pass them out.
We're going to pass out some evaluations. Please sign them, fill them out, and give them back. Enjoy the Karamu. Happy Kwanzaa.